Man them there. Well, the man them in the place. Man oh man, we there from Moran Point to Nick Grill. Welcome to the Mailbox program aired every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101 FM, the family station, celebrating 30 years of service to the nation, to the Caribbean, and to the entire world. Well, welcome to another week inside the program designed for men, hosted by men, and it's Mentegrity Wednesday. Mentegrity Wednesday. And it's a Wednesday where we showcase a man of integrity. I'm Kevin Bailey, and my co-host right here.
My name is Courtney Morrison. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the program Mailbox. And as Kevin said, it is Mentegrity Wednesday. And we have our Mentegrity man inside who showed us today, special man, no stranger to us, no stranger to Jamaica, no stranger to the world, actually. He is Professor Brendan Bain, and he's here to share with us today's life experiences, among other things. And we want you to meet him. Welcome, Professor Brendan Bain. How are you today? You're here with us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's good to be
Have
here.
you?
Although I'm a little bit nervous about the showcasing thing, but let's see.
I have to say to the man, Professor Bain is an amazing human being. Known him for so many years, and he has been an example to so many of us, and specifically to men in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world. And I really admire his humility, so I can understand his nervousness with the way we have framed it. But I really believe that God is going to be in the midst and to challenge, encourage, and empower our men. And this is the mandate of this program. We want to challenge, we want to encourage. At the end of it, we want to empower our men to become all that they were created to become. So it's really great, and I'm excited to have you, Professor Bain. Welcome again to the Mailbox.
Thank you.
Indeed, we're excited about today's program, sir. And it's our pleasure to have you. And we want to remember, I'm sure. So, man, remember, we want to hear from you. We want you to send your feedback or questions on Facebook page at Love 101, where we are live. We are live now on Facebook and YouTube as well. So please join us there. We know you're listening to us over the radio, most of you, at Love 101 FM, celebrating 30 years. But remember, you can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125, or give us a call on our studio line at 876-968-8327. Ladies, you don't know. That's a Jamaican popular saying, we need to put it and put a trademark there. You don't know. Women, remember, you can participate in the program by leaving a message via WhatsApp or comment on our Facebook page. But remember, no calls are allowed. No calls are allowed. No voice notes. So today's program, one of excitement, one with the humble Professor Brendan Bain. It's the Mailbox. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back after these messages. Don't change that channel.
Strong man, integrity man, I am a man. Yay! Get ready for an uplifting time inside Love in the Morning with me, your host, Jakal Dyer, this Thursday, April 27th. Listen throughout the show for tips on how to be the best version of who you are. In the feature, Becoming You. Grab your cup of coffee and start the day right with Morning Coffee Pick Me Up devotional at 6 a.m. Then at 7 a.m., we bring you The Morning Watch with intriguing and thought-provoking discussions. 8:40 a.m., we take it up a notch inside How Do You React with situations and scenarios that make you stop and wonder, what would I do? What would I really do? 9:30 a.m. is Voice of Power, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries. Stick and stay with us this Take Me Back Thursday inside Love in the Morning, 5 to 10 a.m. on the family station, Love 101. Celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love.
This a righteous way. Expo Jamaica is back. It's the 48th staging of the Jamaica Expo under the theme Connecting the World to Jamaica, happening at the National Arena. Join Love 101 FM as we will be live on location on Saturday, April 29 at 11 a.m. to share the exciting and impactful trade show with exhibits of Jamaican products and services powered by the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. That's Expo Jamaica 2023, Saturday, April 29 at 11 a.m. live on the family station Love 101 FM, celebrating 30 years of music, family and love.
Welcome back to the mailbox on Love 101 FM, your family station, celebrating 30 years of ministry to Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world. I'm Kevin Bailey, Courtney Morrison in the place, and Professor Brendan Bain is our Mentegrity guest this afternoon. So, this is the mailbox, and we have to do our general shout out. So, Courtney, I think the man them ready for the shout out. So after three, we're gonna say Monday, and of course I'm gonna invite Professor Brendan Bean. He might have a little trouble saying it the way that we're doing it, but we're gonna ask Professor to join us after three. We'll say Monday. 1, 2, 3, Monday.
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 Little question,
I
little
got the
tell.
accent right.
I love that. I think you got it, Brother Bean. So it's time to get into the main segment because, time has a way of catching up on us. And this is our main segment, the inbox. We're looking at a man of integrity. According to Proverbs 10, verse 9, it says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. A man of integrity value what is honest, true, noble, trustworthy, kind, and right ahead of personal gain. Courtney.
And indeed, that's who we have before us today, a man who puts indeed that which is honest, true, noble, trustworthy, kind, and right ahead of personal gain. He is none other than Professor Brendan Bain. He is a dual citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, but we have claimed him. He is an honors graduate in medicine from the University of the West Indies and a former Wellcome Trust Fellow in Infectious Diseases at the and chairman of the curriculum committee of the Mona Campus Faculty of Medical Sciences, director of the Center for HIV/AIDS Research, Education and Services at UHWI. He's the lead coordinator of the UWI HIV/AIDS Response Program, head of the Mona Campus Department of Community Health and Psychiatry. Indeed, he wears so many hats, and indeed, we could write a book just about what he does. Professor of Community Health and Director of the Caribbean Health Leadership Institute. Just some of the things he does.
Yes, definitely.
Let me interrupt, Courtney. Those are things that I have done in the past. I'm not any of those right now.
Oh, you have done?
Yeah, I've done those things.
Okay.
And I retired from UWI in 2013, worked for a little bit longer at the university. In fact, I've been called back recently to be an adjunct lecturer. But a lot of the things that you have mentioned are things that I have done during my main period of occupation at UWI.
Right, and it seems to be quite a lot. Quite a lot
Yes.
here, Courtney.
For one lifetime, eh?
Of course. He has served as a short-term consultant also for the Pan American Health Organization on several occasions. He was a member of the inaugural PAHO Technical Advisory Committee on HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. He's a member at large representing the Caribbean on the Council of the International Union Against TB and Lung Disease, North America region, and currently um, is in private medical practice as well. But we want to know some inside, outside, because on this program we want to challenge, encourage, empower our men, and the Mentegrity man is so. Professor Bain, were you born with gold spoon in your mouth? Don't know if you're familiar with that. Tell us a little bit about your early childhood years. What was that like for
Okay.
you?
Um, I was born a small boy in a country part of Trinidad. My father was working in the oil field industry as a public health inspector. My parents had not long been married. In fact, they had a girl before they had me, but she died in infancy. So I was the first surviving child. But then they moved back to um, their country town of origin, a place called Arima. It's no longer considered country, but it was definitely country when I was born and moved there. And so I saw myself as a small boy in a country town doing a lot of stuff that people do in the country, going to the river. I learned to ride a bike when I was about 10 and would ride about the town, and we had a nest of boys and a few girls in the neighborhood, but we spent a lot of time with the boys. We had a cricket team, a football team, and we used to do some roaming about, particularly on weekends, and that was how my early years were spent. And then I I got a scholarship from what was the equivalent of common entrance, and um, my life shifted to Port of Spain because I I was sent to board in Port of Spain to attend Queen's Royal College, which was one of the high schools in Port of Spain. And those years between age 10, because I actually started in high school at age 10 and finished at age 18. Notice that I spent nearly 8 years in high school, which means that I had a struggle because it's Form 1 to Form 5 and then Form 6 for 2 years, but I spent an extra year because I lost ground. I got sick for a while, had an operation, was out of class for about 6 months out of classes, and then had to catch up. So I spent all of 8 years in high school, and then things developed after that. So that's a little bit about my early years.
Thank you, Professor Bain. You seem to have been a sports enthusiast, at least somewhat of an athlete. I see here written where you faced two formidable teams, one in Kingston College, the Manning Cup team, and the other in the All Manning team. How great a footballer were you, and what was that challenge like? What importance did sport play in your life in helping you to develop?
First was the example of my dad, who played cricket and football. He almost made the Trinidad and Tobago team, I was told. I had the privilege of watching him more in cricket than in football. And then he became a cricket umpire. He umpired in the regional cricket series, and he did one test match, which I had the opportunity to watch him umpire West Indies against Australia in at the Queen's Park Oval. So he was like an example on that front. And my brother and I had one brother, a younger brother, and both of us were enthusiastic about cricket and football, especially. And to my surprise, because remember I said I went to high school at age 10, in first and second and third form, they never used to pick me for the teams because they were older boys and I used to be put aside. But I started playing junior football in Form 5 because I was young.
Wow.
And then eventually in Form 6, I got to play for the big team at my school. and I played eventually for the all colleges team, and we played against Brazil. I won't
Mhm.
know how many goals I absorbed at the Queen's Park Hotel, playing for Trinidad under 20 against Brazil under 20. And then, lo and behold, I was able to um, make the national team, and I came to Jamaica in
Mhm.
1966. Now, I didn't know the ants nest that I was coming into, because KC had 10 of the 11 players on the national team that time, you know.
Wow.
Hmm. Well, we beat KC, but we couldn't beat the national team. Uh, and that was my first experience here in Jamaica. And 1 year later, I came to start medical school at university, and I played for Chancellor Hall and I played for UWI for all the years that I was at UWI in Jamaica. So you asked me how big a footballer I was. Well, I wanted to play professional football, but I'm glad now, looking back, that I didn't go into professional football, because I wanted to be a doctor, and I settled down in the medical school. I used to play football on the side. I even played football for the Ministry of Health in the Justice Era League when I became a medical intern. You know, so that's where my football career, competitive football career, ended, because I got married, and when I realized that I was going to be a husband, a father, and I started doing postgraduate studies, I had to make a hard decision to give up competitive football. I mean, what happened to me in my internship, you know, was that sometimes I had to ask a colleague to hold on for me so I could go and play for the Ministry of Health. And when I stood in the goal, because I was a goalkeeper, I realized that when the match was over, I was going back to work, and
Wow.
everybody else on the Ministry of Health team was going home,
Wow.
and I had to go back to work, and I said that wasn't good enough. So
Mm.
I gave up competitive football at the end of that season.
Interesting,
Wow.
interesting life story there. I would just started. Professor Bain, you spoke about getting married, and that's such a significant institution. But how did you know that this is the one? Lovely Pauline, and all these years, how many years? And what would you say to our men listening, and the perspective of being married? Share with us a little bit about that, Prof.
Okay. Sometimes when people meet a man and a woman who have been married for many years, they are surprised, and sometimes when they open up and ask us practical questions, they say, how can you stay married for that long? Don't you get bored with each other, and so on and so forth? It hasn't been like that. Um, but at the start, I didn't really know that this lady was the one that I would get married to. It started because we were on the committee of the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship at UWI, and so we knew each other a little bit that way. And then one evening there was a special function at the university. Uh, there was a new chancellor that was going to be installed,
Mhm.
and the ceremony was happening at dinner time. So even though we had meals at our halls, that evening, nobody who attended the ceremony had any food to eat. And at the end of the ceremony, we were milling around in the main part of the campus, and I saw Pauline, and I knew that she had a car, and I didn't have a car. And I kind of walked up to her and I said, I want to make a deal with you. If you drive me somewhere, I will buy you something to eat.
Wow.
And she accepted that. And that was the start of a friendship that ran deeper than being on the same committee, you know, because my memory of the evening was that I just thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that we had. And I wanted to do it again.
Mm.
And I mean, she has heard my story and she has told her story. And she said that when I invited her to another event, she was surprised and she said, I wonder why he invited me again. And I had to kind of explain, you know, and I can't even remember how I explained. I just wanted to enjoy her company. And one thing led to another. And eventually our friendship grew. I asked her to be engaged, and that is a joke between us because she has reminded me I never asked her to get married. I only
Oh.
asked her if we could get engaged. And one thing led to another. Part of our story is that she had an older sister who is still a very good friend of mine and my sister-in-law. And when she told her sister what was starting to break in terms of our friendship and that I seemed to be serious, her sister invited me for lunch at their home. And I just said, yeah, okay, I'll go, not realizing that she wanted to observe me and she wanted to check me out to see if this guy was worth, if her sister was worth having a friendship with this guy who seemed to be serious. Because persons who were from outside of Jamaica didn't always have a good reputation. Men
Mm.
from outside of Jamaica didn't always have a good reputation. Some came not to study at the university, but for other reasons. And she wanted to meet me. And it seems as though I passed the test.
You came to study human biology.
Well, you know, she wanted to see how I ate, whether I could sit down properly at the table and eat as a man,
Wow.
things like that. And I found out afterwards.
You were being graded, sir. You were being graded.
But God was good, and our friendship developed, and eventually we did get engaged. I went back to Trinidad for my last year as a medical student. She and her mom came and they met my parents, and one thing led to another. And we got married about 3 weeks after I graduated from the medical school. So that was the start of a new kind of journey. You know, on the 16th of June of this year, God willing, we would be married for 50 years.
50,
Five,
50 years.
50.
Wow.
I am thrilled. My wife is thrilled. We have 3 adult children and we have 9 children, 9 grandchildren that God has given us.
That is just an amazing, amazing journey, dear Courtney. You're talking coming to 50 years.
Yes.
And
By the way, sorry to interrupt, Kevin.
sure.
My middle name is Courtney, you know. So when you say Courtney, I have to put my ears up to know whether it's Courtney Morrison or Courtney Bailey.
I know Courtney Morris, feeling very important, and significant. So,
The name Courtney literally translates from French into English to means the heart content. So just to say Courtney is just wonderful. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Professor Brendan Bain. He is our Mentegrity man for the afternoon. And indeed, we have been hearing such interesting facts about who he is and his life story. He'll be married for 50 years come June. Awesome stuff. That's a lifetime. 50 represents a jubilee. So Professor Bain, at what age did you become Christian? When did this conversion happen? And tell us a bit about that.
Okay. If you can picture a little boy, 2 little boys holding their mother's arm, walking up a street to church, in the middle of the week at night, okay?
Mm.
And when the service was done, falling asleep, but tripping down the road because our mother's arm and was holding us. That's why we didn't drop down. But I remember falling asleep going back home. It was about 3/4 mile from our house to the church. And my mom was very diligent in that way. When I was 8 years old, she took me to a crusade in Port of Spain, which was 16 miles away. It's like the distance between Kingston and Spanish Town. And she took me to a crusade. And at the end of the service, I responded to an altar call, sat with the preacher, and gave my heart to Jesus Christ the best way I knew. And fast forward to age 15 at a youth camp, a Christian camp. I would say that was the real turning point in my life, because at that camp, I was arrested by the scriptures in Romans chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8, and persons who are listening to the program can check out that part of Paul's letter to Romans, because I was convicted by what the teacher at the camp was saying, which is that we really needed to surrender all of our life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And as a 15-year-old, I knew that there were sections of my life that I was holding back from God. And I prayed quietly during that camp, and I said, God, I want to surrender my whole self to you as best as I know. And that is the turning point that I recall, Courtney, because two things that I experienced, and these are subjective experiences. I can only talk about my experience. I felt after I left that camp that when I prayed, my prayers were going higher than the ceiling. That's how I can say it. And also after that camp, I knew that for the first time, I wanted to be baptized. Because baptism, as I was taught and as I still believe and teach, is a step of obedience after you have surrendered to Christ, turned from your sin, repented, and turned to God, and said, God, I want to turn around, like turn 180 degrees and walk in obedience to you. And part of that obedience is to obey the scriptural command to get baptized. So I got baptized about 6 months after the camp, maybe about 8 months after the camp. So two things that
Professor Bain, let us take a break and come back for you to continue sharing with us about that part of your life.
Okay.
Right. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break, go to the studio. This is the Bail Box on Love 101 FM, the family station. We'll be back in a moment.
What are deposit-taking institutions? A licensed deposit-taking institution is a financial institution which accepts deposits and makes loans. And when we say licensed deposit-taking institutions, we are talking about a commercial bank, building society, or a merchant bank. Your savings at a deposit-taking institution are covered by deposit insurance. This financial literacy tip was brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, occurrence. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint. On Thursdays, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Educom Cooperative Credit Union, providing value through service, and Bashco, the store that gives you more. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
Many of our brothers and sisters lose hope when diagnosed with HIV. Some lose their will to continue being a part of society. Others are despaired by the challenges of keeping up with their treatment. We understand. But remember, people with HIV live normal and progressive lives every day. You can too if you get back on track with your HIV treatment. Live for you, live for someone, live for something.
Get back on track, get back to life.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Get ready for Expo Jamaica 2023. We're connecting the world to Jamaica with over 350 Jamaican exhibits in manufacturing, exports, produce, agriculture, tourism, and services. Bring out your family and friends. Friday, April 28th, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. National Indoor Sports Center to the National Arena. Adults, $1,500. Children under 12, $500. Expo Jamaica. Be with things supported. Hosted by the JMEA. Powered by the Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. Check social media for details.
Yes. Indeed. Welcome back to the mailbox on Love 101 FM, the family station. It's Mentegrity Wednesday inside the mailbox. I'm Kevin Bailey and Courtney Morrison. My co-host is here. Our Mentegrity man is Professor Brendan Bain. And before we took the break, you were, I think, in the midst of sharing from your conversion, baptism, and I wanted, before you complete that sharing, Professor Bain, for you to kind of share with us, how have you been able to maintain that walk as a Christian with all the challenges that you face? Share a little bit about that as you complete this.
Okay, before I respond to that question, Kevin, I just want to give credit to my mother, who really helped to teach me from the scriptures, and my younger brother to teach us. And you know, during term time at school, we didn't have the time to interact with our mother in that way. Even when we came home from school in the evening, it was time to go out and play. I lived on the edge of a park, and in the evening after school, the boys especially would just cross the street, go out into the park, and if it was cricket season, we playing cricket. If it was football season, we playing football. And then they opened a lawn tennis court across the street obliquely across the street from my house. I mean, I could walk 25, 30 yards to the door to the lawn tennis court, the gate to the lawn tennis court. So evening was for play until dinner time. And after dinner, it was time to do homework. So it was in vacation time that my mother used to sit with us many a morning and read parts of the Bible. And she used to concentrate a lot on Proverbs. And one of the Proverbs that she taught us, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29. And it was King James Version in those days. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men.
Wow.
And I never forgot that verse. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men. And I guess subconsciously that influenced me. I wanted to be diligent in my business. You know, my mother used to tell friends, Brendan works hard and he plays hard. You know? And that was characteristic of how I approached life in those days. But your question was different. How have I managed to maintain
Yes.
a commitment to Christ over the years? Well, let me see how I can answer that question. Um, I'm thinking that before I came to Jamaica to university, I'd already developed a practice of spending a few moments each morning reading the Bible and praying. Okay. Then when I came to Jamaica, I lived in a hall of residence, and I was tested there, because by the way, two Jamaican guys who were studying on campus in Trinidad. I had gotten to know them through Interschool Christian Fellowship, and they knew that I was coming up here. And they said to me, Brendan, when you come to campus, make sure that you declare to the people around you, to the fellow students, and so on, that you are a Christian believer. Okay. So I made that declaration. And of course, that put me in a kind of spotlight. And one guy said to me, you can't keep that up. And I mean, there's a lot of detail in my story. For instance, I did well enough after the first 2 years to get a special scholarship to go to England. And one of the subwardens said to me, Brendan, by the time you come back, not his exact words, you would have given up your Christian faith and practice. Well, I didn't. God helped me, and I spent a year in England, came back and continued. I also made up my mind that I would go to church here in Jamaica, and I went to church every Sunday morning. I didn't go in the middle of the week because the studies were heavy, and I stayed on campus and attended the InterVarsity Fellowship meeting. It's called UCCF now.
Yeah.
But I tried to balance how I spent my week, and that was also helpful to me. The InterVarsity Fellowship group was a good group as well that helped me, because it wasn't just singing songs, listening to the Bible. It was making a circle of friends. And that social circle was also helpful to me. And I would recommend not just going to church, because my definition of church, is not focused on the buildings. A lot of people, when they think about going to church, they think the building, So I went to a church that was held in a building, but I consider the church to be the group of persons that share the same faith. And part of church for me is what happens outside of that building. So, I mean, there were people that encouraged me too, because after church, many a Sunday, I was invited to people's homes. People who were older in the Christian faith than me. And that helped me as well. When you ask one question that seems very simple, I have to think about all the factors that came together to help me to get stronger, to grow in my Christian faith. Now, sometimes people think that being a Christian is just a cakewalk. I mean, you just become a Christian and you are a Christian. But I think that Christian growth is something that young men need to pay attention to. And I heard a sermon recently where somebody was saying that the Christian life is a work in progress. And that person wanted on the epitaph when they died to say that the work is over now. You can bury me now because the work is done. And I can relate to that, because I have this title, you address me as prof. And I don't know how people feel about a prof, but a prof is not a perfect person. A prof has challenges in his life. A prof who is a married man has challenges to be a faithful husband.
Mm-hmm.
Because see me and come live with me.
Two different things.
And you're interviewing me, you're not interviewing my wife today. So you only hear my story. And I think it's important as men, as we talk to each other, that we acknowledge that we have had challenges in our lives. And I mean, I thank the Lord for long life that He has given me, but we can't talk about my long life in 1 hour, you know. And I mean, I am not the host on the program. I want to listen and I want to follow your guidance in the program, but we definitely can't talk about 50 years or 70 years in 1 hour, So let's see how we go. And
Yes.
listen, and I will try my best to respond.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Professor Ben being here on the mailbox. Indeed, he's our man of integrity. It is Mentegrity Wednesday. But we have a section that we call favorite folders. And as Professor spoke about work, the question today as we take at the issue in the favorite folder is men who don't work. And the question is, and Prof, you need to help us with this, should they be taken care of the same way a woman without a job should be taken care of? Men who don't work, should they be taken care of the same way a woman without a job would be taken care of?
I think that is a very powerful question. It's a question that I have never been asked before. So I have to think before I answer. And I'm thinking right back to when I was leaving high school. I wanted to study medicine. I applied to the University of the West Indies. I got a late call from the university. And in those days, messages came by telegram. Nowadays, telegram is a social media. But a telegram was a piece of paper with a message, short message usually. I got a telegram at my home that says, "You have been accepted." And I couldn't wait until my father came home in the night. And I showed him the telegram. Within a few minutes, he sat me down at the dinner table that was a meeting point at our home. And he said to me, "Brendan, your mother and I cannot afford to send you to university. We can't afford to pay for you.
Oh.
You'll have to work for a year or two, and we will see what we could do after that." And I was very disappointed, I remember. I said to him, "A year or two, Daddy?" "Yes, that is our reality." And he said, "I will try to help you to find a job." In fact, I think he said, "I will help you to find a job." And that's the part of the story that I want to pause at right now. My father helped me to find my first job. So I don't know, as there are other men listening and young men listening to this program this evening, is there somebody in your life who can help you to find your first job? Because if my father didn't help me to find that job, I don't know how I would begin to look for a job. I think it's very important for young men to think about working as part of their life story, that their life will unfold through work. Not the kind of work that I hear about sometimes. I don't even want to call the name, but I will call it like scamming. That is work. It takes work to do scamming. But that's work that leads a young person in the wrong direction. And there are some who can tell their story after a while, because you get things at first and you feel as though you're doing good work. But you know, Anansi was never a great example for us here in Jamaica. And I wish that I could discourage as many persons as possible from believing that Anansi style is the way to work. But your question was what? If a man is not working, should he be taken care of like how a woman who is not working is taken care of? There's a lot that's deep in that question, you know.
Prof, before you answer completely, we're
Yeah.
going to have to go to a break. So we're going to have to
Okay.
answer
Okay.
following the
Okay.
break. So we're
Sure.
going to come back to Professor Brenda here. Should a man be taken care of just as if he doesn't have a job, just as a woman is taken care of? Be right back. This is the Mailbox. I'm Pastor Corey Morrison.
Yes. So you can stay close while socially distant with your loved ones just when you need it the most. This Labor Day weekend, you'll be able to send 5 absolutely free text messages per day to your family and friends in the UK, USA, and Canada. Also, when you talk for 5 minutes on calls to US or Canada fixed and mobile and UK fixed lines, you get the next 15 minutes on that call free. Your family and friends living abroad can also add credit or plans to your account by visiting digicelljamaica.com. Stay safe and stay connected. Digicel, they're with you.
Love 101 invites you to listen to Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, Thursdays at 10 p.m. Every first Thursday, listen for words of upliftment from the Lighthouse Assembly with Bishop Rowan Edwards. Every second Thursday at 10 p.m., listen for a word of encouragement from Mojis Ministries International. That's Women of God in Service with Reverend Dr. Elaine Richards. Every third Thursday, receive words of strength and power from Praise Deliverance Ministry with Senior Pastor Fitzroy Carr. Every fourth Thursday, Reverend Leonie Samuels of the Richmond New Testament Church of God in St. Mary shares words of hope. For fifth Thursdays, it's words of inspiration from the New United Bible Way Church of God with Reverend Dr. Jasmine Brown. That's Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches every Thursday at 10 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back. This is the Mailbox live on Love 101 FM and also on YouTube, our YouTube page and our Facebook page. Remember, this program happens every Wednesday at 5:30 here on Love 101, the family station. Kevin Bale, my co-host, and I'm Courtney Morrison. And this is a program hosted by men whose guests are men. And indeed, it is designed for our men. We're talking with Professor Brendan Bain today. He is our MENTEGRITY of integrity. And as such, we were in favorite folders. Men who don't work, should they be taken care of in the same way as women who do not have a job? Prof,
Well,
back to you.
that could be a whole program, Courtney, because in the first instance, I'm wondering if we are dissing women who don't have a job or encouraging them to just be dependent on men. I don't believe in that. In fact, I have known of situations where the woman just stays at home and expects the young man, who is not even her husband, to work hard and bring them to her. That is a pattern that I would not like to encourage in this country. I'd not like to encourage women in that pattern. Clearly, I don't want to encourage men in that pattern as well. But you know, the challenge is to find work that is honorable and that brings enough to a young man while he grows and continues to develop. And I see that there are efforts on the part of some people in the government sector, some people in the private sector, to help young people to find their feet. and to earn the possibility of doing honorable work. Honorable work is work that you don't have to be ashamed of. It's work that you can hold your head high and say, this is the job that I'm doing. You know, when you invited me to be on this program, and I asked myself, what is integrity? I remember the billboards that I started seeing in some parts of Kingston and St. Andrew that said, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking. Now, if you are doing a job that you don't want anybody to see, and you don't want anybody to know that you're doing that job, you have to ask yourself, is that a job of integrity? Integrity is a big word. We have to break it down. And you know, it has to do with honesty, as Kevin, you said at the start of the program. It has to do with having strong moral principles. And as Christian men, we get our morality from the scriptures, from the Bible, and we don't have to be ashamed of that. You know, that does not say that we are perfect men. You know, we struggle, and we get tempted, we get tested, and we have to say that publicly, you know, because sometimes people only see us when we have good clothes on, you know. People only hear us when we're talking on a program like this.
Yes.
They don't see us behind the scenes. My neighbors could probably tell you more about me than anybody could tell you when I show my curriculum, all the experiences I've had, because I'm gonna write all the good experiences, and you say, wow, you know, what a great guy, you know. But the people who I work with on committee, people who I worked with in the teaching group at the university, they have a chance to see my weak points as well as my strong points. And a man of integrity is not necessarily a man who is perfect, you know. I mean, when you read the Bible and you hear about Paul, for example, the Bible tells you about his background, but it also tells you about the struggles that he has had and that he has had to overcome, you know. So when we're dealing with reality, we have to look at it from all angles.
So true, Prof. And just because we're aware we want to manage the time as best as we can, I wanted for you to comment on success. You know, your definition of success for men specifically, and can all the men in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, be successful? What would be required? No, quite a lot, but I want us to help our men as they listen, Prof.
Kevin, I think that we have to understand that the marks of success that some people big up, those are not necessarily the marks of success as God sees success. There's a lot that one could say. For example, a very telling scripture is that man looks at the outward appearance and God looks at the heart. And I think that as we go through life, whether young, middle-aged, or old, we know ourselves and we know that God knows us. And so we can't pretend before God. And success before God has to do with the relationship that we agree to develop with God and before God. So that's one way that I would choose to respond to that question, marks of success. Now, I have been successful in certain ways. For instance, educationally, I've been successful. I used to do my homework, you know, in primary school, in high school, and so on. I went through periods of sickness when I couldn't do the work and I had to catch up. I had to repeat O levels. Not everybody knows what O levels are, but like CXC, I had to repeat the equivalent of that to get better grades.
CSEC examination.
CSEC, yeah. CSEC. I had to repeat the equivalent of CSEC. And then I had to repeat sixth form because I needed a certain subject that I didn't do in the first 2 years. And I had to do that to get qualified to go into medical school. When I came into medical school, an aunt of mine gave me advice. She gave me a book about how to study, and it included advice about creating a study timetable. And I studied 3 hours a night during the week. And on Sundays, I studied 2 hours a night, as I recall. And so I never overdid it. I played sports and I balanced my study time. In fact, it was the fittest that I was physically when I was in my first 2 years or 3 years of medical school. And I excelled. I came in with moderate grades. I ended up at the end of 2 years first in my class.
Wow.
Now I came first in my class not because I decided to compete. I decided to do my best. And it turned out that I came first in my class. That's how come I went to England for a special scholarship at the end of the first 2 years. And my students now are asking me, what is the secret of my success? And I said, I tell them the foundation that I built with the help of my teachers, but I studied hard in my first 2 years and built a foundation. Okay, so that's academic success. The same thing on the sports field. I trained hard and I learned by my mistakes as a goalkeeper. And my brother, my younger brother, who sadly died in July 2021, but he was my deputy goalkeeper in high school for the first 11. And at the end of each game, many games, I say every single game, but at the end of some games, he would point out to me what I did wrong during the game, and I would seek to correct it for the next game. And so I eventually excelled to the point where the coaches wanted me to play for the Trinidad under-20 team. You know, so hard work is part of the formula for success. Okay, I would say that without any hesitation.
All right, we've heard such a mouthful. Indeed, those are marks. We have in less than a minute to try to conclude the program. It's already 6:28. Professor Bain, any parting word you can tell our men to encourage, to uplift, power as we go? Anything in life that you learned that stood out that you just want to share in a minute, our men to
I think that if you try to be too bossy, that you're setting yourself up for failure. And sometimes the failure comes suddenly and can be very painful. And, you know, the Bible talks about that in Jeremiah chapter 9, verses 23 and 24, a part of the Bible that I've learned very carefully. Let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord, who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. So don't be too bossy, because it's a formula for getting tripped up and failing. And I wish I had time to tell you about when I failed my postgraduate exam for the first time after flying high in the first 5 years of medical training.
We probably have to do a part 2, eh?
and what
That's
I learned.
where we have to take her up to date, though.
All right.
Thank you,
Yes.
Prof.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry,
I've
sir, we had to
enjoyed
cut
being
it short right there. Thanks to our producer, Trisha and Brand, to Timoy Butler for technical support, to our special guest again, Professor Brendan Bain, a true man of integrity. For information on how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-9597 or download the podcast via our mobile app. Listen again next week for another Mailbox, a program designed for men with guests who are men, which is hosted by man. Indeed, Kevin and I say
Yes.
goodbye until next week. Monday.
Monday. Thanks again, Prof.